So Lamar Jackson was not good. Two interceptions. One was not really his fault. They did not convert either fourth down attempt, the best fourth down team in the league, and he did have a fumble as well. So, look, he didn't play well. So what I'm led to believe by Lamar Jackson sycophants is, hey, man, he's just a kid now. He can't take away from the MVP season. And he's just a kid. Okay. What if I told you that Lamar Jackson has been a home favorite against a wild card team in both of those playoff games? That change your mind? I will grant you, this is only his first and second year in the National Football League. So, while we can't have ridiculous and unrealistic expectations based upon his first and second playoff game, if you want to tell me that the guy is the guy's the MVP of the league, the most valuable player in the league, actually, because he didn't play well Saturday and they collapsed, it could give you if you want, better argument. I don't think that's what this is all about. The Lamar Jackson critique is not about race. Lamar Jackson critique is not about age. Lamar Jackson critique is about nothing more than we have 30, 40 years of history, especially the last 25 years of modern NFL history, that show us that type of quarterback, and we have the last 10 years of football to tell you that this type of offense with that type of quarterback, regardless of color of skin, regardless of age, but it's usually younger, regardless of what school they went to, what offense they play in, there is a short-term benefit, and long-term, it becomes increasingly difficult. Then factor in the injury factor, which is impossible not to point out. And whether it's because guys get older and a little bit slower and they get caught up, or just the volume of carries, you simply cannot be your team's leading rusher once you get into your fourth, fifth, sixth season. There's not longevity in it. We've seen RG3 have a rookie year where he took the Redskins to the playoffs. We've seen Colin Kaepernick have his first year and a half, 2 years, where he was a dynamic player in the same offense. We've seen Tyrod Taylor take the Buffalo Bills to the playoffs in the same offense. We've seen Michael Vick, not necessarily the same offense, but a similar type of electric talent with a cannon for an arm, albeit relatively inaccurate, and lightning bolts for legs. I'm willing to tell you that I don't think anybody would argue, Lamar Jackson has and will work harder than Mike Vick. Mike Vick, by his own accounts, was not working hard, was not buying in. I will tell you, unlike RG3, they're not going to try and make him into a West Coast style quarterback. They are not going to try and square peg, round hole it. They ain't doing that. They're all in on this style. And I'm also willing to believe that they've put better personnel around him that fit that style. The 3 tight ends, the top taker offer in a Hollywood Brown, the running back, the offensive line. And the team, the city, everybody is all in on it. But if you can't see the limitations in style, even without injury, I can't really help you. I just can't. Russell Wilson was a dynamic runner for his first couple years in the NFL. And they spoon-fed him and said, if you don't have it, run the football. Why? We got the best defense in football. And the Ravens, historically, regardless of front office, as it's evolved here and Ozzie Newsome retired last year, they have put a very formidable defense, and they have the best kicker in football. But it is a style where if one thing isn't right, it becomes a little bit of a house of cards. As opposed to the Kansas City Chiefs, who they haven't had a good defense for either of the past 2 years. They're down 24-0 at home. They have a good, not great kicker. They have a decent defense. They have a good offensive line, a decent running game. Probably, in all honesty, below average running game. But Pat Mahomes, though he can run, is an unbelievable thrower, the likes of which we may have never seen. Right? He's got Aaron Rodgers with a little bit more size. And unlike Aaron Rodgers, he didn't have to sit 4 years. He sat 1. And unlike Aaron Rodgers, he has the fastest player in the NFL and, one of the 2 best pass-catching tight ends in the NFL. To go along with a bevy of other, like when Sammy Watkins is your 4th best pass catcher, you got a hell of a team. So they built the team around him. You got a great coach who knows quarterbacks, developed quarterbacks, and maybe the brightest combination of arms and legs inside and outside the pocket in the league. I didn't make the rules. Okay? I didn't write the history of the NFL. I also am willing to admit I don't know how it plays out. But I saw this. This was a great tweet. I saw it from LL Cool J. LL Cool J. I got to look this up really quick. LL Cool J had one of the great tweets in the history of Twitter. And it was on Sunday, I think, maybe Saturday, which is the thing we've learned about history is that we don't study history. Right? I could go back and tell you, look, Mike Vick didn't just disappoint in Atlanta because he didn't study. He also got hurt. I think after his MVP year, he got hurt the next year in the preseason. It derailed them. And then, of course, the dogfighting, it took away some of the prime years of his career. Vince Young had terrible off-the-field habits. He was a Pro Bowler his rookie year. He never evolved. He never developed. Like Lamar Jackson, I'm okay if you say, look, this dude doesn't have the off-the-field baggage, all about ball, all about his teammates, faster than all those guys, has improved as a passer, has the complete commitment of everybody in the organization. I'm okay with that. And you say, look, if he got this much better from year 1 to year 2, why can't he get that much better from year 2 to year 3? There's no reason he can't. We just haven't seen that before. We just haven't seen the type of jump as a passer. You can tell me, hey, look, Russell Wilson, okay, go back and look at Russell Wilson and how he evolved as a passer at NC State and then to Wisconsin. Colin Kaepernick was dynamic and dominating the league with his legs. And then they figured out, he doesn't make great off-platform throws. He's got small hands. His leadership was called into question. He's really kind of a quiet guy. He lost it well before he took a knee. He lost the job, and he had a litany of injuries. Vic got hurt. RG3 got hurt. Kaepernick got hurt. Hell, Steve Young, his career was, though it went longer than you think because he played in his mid-30s, he was always banged up. And as much as Steve Young has some amazing runs and was a great runner, he was a great thrower. Look, everything I'm saying applies for Josh Allen, who's a bigger body and I would say a less dynamic in terms of elusiveness runner. It honestly, and look, the Tebow thing. Tebow time, was it nearly as good as what the Ravens do? No. But they beat the Steelers in the playoffs because Steelers were in cover 0, trying to stop Tebow running the football. I'm not calling this thing a gimmick, okay? Because I don't think there's sleight of hand. This is a style which the Ravens are completely committed to. But if you can't see the ceiling or the possibility that teams can and will adjust to it, not just because we've seen it from the Titans, we've seen it from the Chargers, but we've seen it over the last 25 years, you're so all in on Lamar Jackson, you're doing what LL Cool J said we're all victims of doing. The thing about studying history is we realize we don't study history. So, yeah, I would still take Sam Darnold long term. He's been coached by inferior coaches, been surrounded by inferior players, hasn't had top wide receivers. Until this year, he didn't have Le'Veon Bell, who didn't play the whole season. He's played for 2 general managers and 2 head coaches. And you know what? They're 7-2 to finish the year. Sam Darnold similarly runs around to throw and is a better, more accurate passer. How do I know? I don't know. I just think that while this has been fun, and it's still going to be fun next year, history tells us it gets increasingly difficult to play this style. Now, maybe what factors in is he's a better worker than anybody else, that his team is more committed than anybody else, and the league is trying to stop a different style of offense than what the Ravens are doing, right? That this was a matchup issue, that Tennessee just so happened to have the speed at linebackers and just so happened to have the game plan. But the fact is they put another guy in the middle of the field because Lamar only throws the middle. He doesn't throw outside the numbers because he's just not accurate. And they found a way to contain him. And, oh yeah, by the way, now you see why people don't go for it on fourth down. Right? They got it all the time in the regular season. But that's a bit of a facade for how good you actually are. Right? There's a statistical likelihood of making it. And I understand that those same statisticians would tell you that they don't carry over from one play to the next. Right? That momentum isn't really a factor. That you're, 51% likely to get it, and it increases your likelihood of winning a game. But the reality is, if you get it 8 times in a row, common sense tells you you might not get it the next 8 times. Like the going for it on fourth down is the going for 2 every time you have an extra point. Right? Mark Helfrich got fired at Oregon. Basically, they played at Nebraska. He'd always gone for 2. He went for 2. I think he didn't get like 4 times. We're like, this is ridiculous. Like, look, the math tells you that you should do it, but people don't have the stomach for doing it. All right? The math told the Rockets they wouldn't miss 27 threes in a row. Statistically, it's so unlikely to happen that you just let it fly. Sports are different. They're not just played in a computer. Right? They're played inside television sets. They're played on basketball floors and football fields and baseball fields. And what happens is when you're tired and you're under pressure and you're playing against defense and you're thinking about beating the Golden State Warriors and the pass is a little bit off because the passer's a little bit tight. Like we can't stat for that. Can't stat for that. Maybe the shooter's not nervous, but the passer is nervous. Maybe Lamar Jackson wasn't nervous, but his right guard was. And then once you don't get it the first time on fourth down, the next time you go for it, guys in the huddle are like, damn, this would suck if we didn't get it again. And you don't. And now all of a sudden the defense lets down because the offense wasn't doing what it did all season long. I'm not saying it ain't going to work long term. I'm saying that history tells you it's going to get increasingly difficult. There's a likelihood of injury. There's a likelihood of adjustment. And there's a likelihood that you're never going to experience the type of greatness and explosiveness with this type of offense ever again. And if you want to say, you can't criticize him, Kirk Cousins won in New Orleans. On the road, he beat the New Orleans Saints. He made 2 unbelievable throws in overtime. They come back, they play against the number 1 seed in San Francisco. He doesn't play well. They go from New Orleans to San Francisco, the toughest place to play in the league, to the most stacked roster in the league. And they lose. You're like, Kirk Cousins, he still can't win the big game. Right? Lamar Jackson hadn't played well in a bowl game. Didn't play well in either playoff game. Was a first-round pick, unlike Cousins, who's a fourth-round pick. Think about how you judge them today. Tom Brady scored one more point, 13 points at home against the exact same defense in a shortened game where they had fewer possessions. And people are like, Tom Brady's washed up. He should retire. He had no talented wide receivers. He had no talented tight end, limited group at running back. Lost his center to start the year. Julian Edelman is 33 years old, jumping on cars in Beverly Hills. Actually, I'm impressed by it. I'm not mad at all. And people are like, man, Tom Brady, he stinks. He's washed up. Lamar Jackson, a handful of turnovers, looks a little tight, looks a little confused. They score one more point. And it's one fewer point, excuse me. And people are like, you guys can't be hard on Lamar Jackson. How do we get here? I don't know. What is it? What's good for the goose is good for the gander? You got to be fair in your critique of Lamar Jackson. It doesn't mean his career is over. It doesn't mean he's not this year's MVP. It just means you have to have a sensible and reasonable way of looking at him now, his future, and what happens with the Baltimore Ravens. Hey, what up? Doug Gottlieb here. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Fox Sports Radio. You can catch my show, all the shows on Fox Sports Radio, unique interviews, strong takes, just interesting discussion on the sports topic of the day, of the week, of the month. It's all encompassing. It's everything you need right here on YouTube. Subscribe.